Here we are again on Worlds Beyond with Cam and Ron. It's been a little over 30 days, I think, since we did our last recording.
Yeah, it's been a little while. Just been catching up on some work stuff and getting into the spooky season with some horror movie rewatches, but keeping up with some of the new stuff. There's been a little bit of a kind of release gap, but now that there's a few episodes of She-Hulk and Andor and a few more things coming up, we're going to be getting back into it.
I know, I'm excited. I've started the spooky season stuff too. Already gotten through 6 movies and a show, which is like way better than I've done previously. So excited to touch on that stuff down the road too. But today, for the first half of today's episode, we are going to focus on Disney Plus's She-Hulk. They're now at episode 6. We're going to focus on the first half, approximately 5 episodes that have been released so far, and give you our impressions on that. So Cam, what is your initial reaction?
My initial reaction is overall very positive. I have to say, I think out of all of the MCU shows, my kind of first big reaction to this one is that it feels like one of the more like fully realized and fleshed out shows, whereas like Moon Knight and some of the other previous ones have felt a little bit like maybe not completely, like there may have been some COVID rearranging or production delays and that sort of thing. This, along with Miss Marvel, Hawkeye, and I think WandaVision really feel like the most realized, but to me, She-Hulk really feels like it could stand on its own, as it's even like aside from the MCU. So whereas WandaVision kind of needs to be in the MCU in order for it to do its whole kind of gimmick, to me the superhero lawyer kind of concept works beyond its place in the MCU. So it really feels like a show that can go in so many different directions. And I've just been pleasantly surprised at how funny it is and how well written it is, and just overall, you know, there's some hiccups here and there that we'll talk about, but this has been probably one of my one of the more positive MCU show debuts for me, I think.
My reaction as the series has progressed has kind of gone downhill a little bit.
Oh, wow.
I initially thought, the first couple of episodes I was very excited for. First of all, I have to start off by saying, yeah, I will agree with you that this definitely seems like a show that, at least in terms of what they intended to do, I think it's coming out, it's coming through with what they intended to do. I have to start by saying I absolutely love Tatiana Maslany. She's one of my favorite actors. When I discovered Orphan Black, I went and told anybody and everybody I could about how awesome that show was and how incredible her performances were, playing the multiple versions of herself. So really excited that she's been in the show. I thought the first episode was great. I honestly can't imagine how this would have gone if they didn't they say they were originally going to save her origin episode until later in the show? And then they decided at the last minute further along to say, no, we need to do the origin episode first and not do it as a flashback. I can't imagine if they hadn't done that. To me, I think it would have been a little bit sort of, well, I'll just say I agree with their decision to do that. Overall impressions have been, first couple of episodes were great. I love the format, just going for a typical sitcom. She breaks the fourth wall. It's not like Deadpool intensity of like comedy and breaking the fourth wall. Just sort of like, like typical show. I've just had a hard time for the episodes that don't have cameos and that are kind of dealing with other, the other major characters that are cameoing or teasing those. I found and it's been mostly the last couple of episodes, to just be sort of like, just not that impactful. Like I think I found the writing to be kind of spotty. I feel like some of the humor and comedy stuff has been great and funny, and some of it has been really just sort of flat. And it just feels like, I don't know what they often joke about how Seinfeld was a show about nothing. And I feel like this, especially when it's not dealing with, one of the cameos and the other characters. And she even jokes about that, that the show relies a lot on cameos. But I've just felt like when the show's not focused on that, it's kind of, just kind of flat, like, for me. So that's my overall impression. I know with too many words, but
I didn't know that they were not planning on showing the origin story. It's funny that you say that though, because that feels like the most rushed thing to me in this series so far. Like, it felt like we were introduced to her and Banner's relationship very quickly, and then they immediately did the origin story, and then they covered that whole stretch of time in one episode, and then it was on to the show. I almost, it's interesting that you say that, because it almost is clear to me now that that might have been like a reshoot or tacked on at the last minute, because it seemed so brief. I would have liked to have, in fact, I'd say one of my biggest major complaints about the show is I would have liked to see maybe one more episode or just a little bit more time spent with them kind of fleshing out their relationship a little bit more, because it's like we're introduced to this new character that's supposedly Banner's cousin, and yet we've never, I mean, obviously Banner's been on the run and everything, so we haven't had a huge opportunity to really meet his extended family or anything, but I would have liked to see a little bit more context of where she kind of fits into his family, and we're getting that a little bit, but it just seems like kind of a interest, like just a real left turn for Banner's character to introduce this new family member of his without any build up at all in the previous movies. But I mean, you have to take some liberties, and I really actually did enjoy the kind of big differences between how they dealt with becoming the Hulk, and how Banner was much more angry and had to deal with all the anger stuff, but then she has all these other she's a little bit better at controlling her anger, but then she doesn't really want to be the superhero that Banner is. So I really liked all of that, and I would have liked to seen it fleshed out and maybe a little bit more depth to it. So it's interesting that you say that. But then once the show kind of got going, it just started to work for me. I think some of the humor falls a little bit flat, but I was really surprised at just how much I was like cracking up at some of the jokes. I really loved Abomination's kind of like cult of wives that he had that were all like rooting for him to get out. I thought that was hilarious, and just a lot of the little gags and jokes along the way, or the sorcerer guy sending Madison into the other dimensions, and then her popping out in Wong's room. I thought that was hilarious. So there's a lot of just funny gags and things that I don't think you could really get away with in a more serious MCU property, but it's kind of exploring the kind of funnier side of living in a world where all of this crazy stuff is happening. So I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the stuff that works really well. And you know, I've sat there watching, saying like I can watch Tatiana Maslany all day long, and I've just been sitting there in some of the episodes, probably more the last two, just being like, she's doing the best she can with what they're giving her, but it's just some of it fell a little flat. So maybe is there anything you want to say about any particular episodes, or do we want to go into kind of a little bit about what of your two favorites been? I have a feeling we're going to both agree on what our probably two favorite episodes have been so far, but
I'm trying to think a little bit more about, because like I was telling you earlier before we started recording, I need to kind of separate the episodes in my head, because I watched them all in one big chunk, so they're kind of blending together for me.
Right, and they are. I mean, you know, admittedly too, they are pretty short.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It was fun that they did the post credits or mid credits tag on the first couple of episodes. I almost wish they had kept on.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was surprised in the last episode that I watched. I don't know about the most recent episode, but I think in the 5th episode there wasn't a post-credits scene, although there was a pretty big tease at the end with I won't get too much into spoilers yet, but so I think that kind of acted as the post-credits stinger to kind of get people interested in coming back. But I thought all of the post-credit scenes have been really funny, especially that first one where you realize where Bruce admits that Steve lost his virginity in World War II. I thought that was hysterical.
Yeah, that was a great joke. So then I guess, to go through them, the two best episodes have been the People versus Emil Blonsky, with just the whole Abomination thing, like you said, with just the way they sort of unraveled that scene from Shang-Chi and made that work. And Wong has been great, and just going through the whole working out him being, getting released and being able to continue with his life and how he's all this like super zen guy
Mm-hmm.
now. And I have a feeling somewhere along the line he's going to come back
Right.
into the picture at some point. And then the next episode with that Donnie Blaze Rogue Magician was great. And
yeah, that was hilarious.
Date,
mm-hmm.
Jen going on her date, embracing the She-Hulk persona and all that stuff. Those were great, but I feel like, they relied on a lot of Wong,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of Abomination. So then we went to the next episode where she has to go up against Titania in, as far as, her taking the copyright, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Just, dispute that they have. And I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, I sort of expected something like this would happen. And, then to get into the big reveal at the end of that episode where we see when Jen goes to have some properly fitting clothes, superhero clothes made for her that she can wear both as herself and the Hulk. We see that reveal of Daredevil's helmet that he appears to be working on. And I was like, that was the best part of the episode, was just like the tease of a future cameo by Daredevil. I felt just the rest of it was just kind of flat for me.
Yeah, I think that was the weakest episode. It was also the episode that really relied the most on the kind of, I guess, recurring regular characters of the show. It is the first season, so I wonder how much of the reaction to certain characters is gonna kind of affect their future appearances. So I like Wong seems to be more of a guest star now, but I almost wonder if they'll probably end up bringing him back a little bit more. I do have to say, aside from Jennifer Walters, I am a little bit iffy on the characters who are kind of setting up as the regulars. I like her paralegal well enough, but I feel like she's not gotten a whole lot to do recently. And then there's that kind of guy, other lawyer there who hasn't really done much at all. And I guess that was kind of his... He had an episode where they were helping him with that one case, but that was more of like a side thing. It didn't have a whole lot of impact on his character or anything. So I will say, yeah, I think you're right in that the strongest characters in the show so far have been either the cameos or the ones that have been are already introduced from the MCU, and I'm still a little bit like kind of iffy on the new characters, but I'm hoping that once they start to flesh them out a little bit more. The concept of the show is really good, and I could see them building this whole kind of legal team of like wacky characters. Like her boss is kind of funny but not really stand out, but I bet if they just kept fleshing them out and making them a little bit more kind of, maybe not extreme, but like just characters, they could have something really cool, almost like The Office or something, where there's this kind of team of people working on all these different superhero related things.
Yeah, I like her paralegal. That other guy, he seems like he should be a smarmy jerk, but yet they are playing him.
Right. Well, I keep getting him mixed up with
guy.
The other guy who is a smarmy jerk. There's that one that they worked with previously who was like comically smarmy, and then he kind of looks or sounds similar to the one that they're trying to establish as the nice character. So it's a little bit like I'm getting a little bit confused, but hopefully, again, once they start to flesh those characters out a little bit more, they'll become a little bit more distinct.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see where her boss guy, he's pretty funny and just sort of like clueless and deadpan. Right. But then that other lawyer who's kind of almost like her rival a little bit, that's helped her out. It's interesting to see where that character is going to go, and like, are they going to, are they going to become allies with each other in the workplace and just as friends, or is she going to be some sort of antagonist to Jen a little bit? But you alluded to in the Donnie Blaze episode, obviously he was pretty funny, and as well that character that they introduced, that Madison from the audience,
she's hysterical.
She was hilarious. So far to me, she's been, I mean, she's all, she's kind of playing that typical like Paris Hilton,
kind of like Valley Girl stereotype,
like thing,
party girl, yeah.
But she just does a tremendous job, and the fact that like her and Wong kind of have common ground,
right?
And kind of hang out together, and I thought that was fantastic. That's been one of the better sort of scenarios that they've set up. So overall, there's going to be 9 episodes. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so, 9. Yeah. That was WandaVision, right?
WandaVision was 9, yeah. So interesting to see where they take it, and what do they circle back to? Do they circle back to some sort of, and that's been the thing, is like I get that this is going to be more of a true situation comedy, and more week to week, and probably less of a overall plot arc, long, season long plot arc. But I gotta believe this is the MCU. They never don't have a bigger overriding story. So I'm curious where that's going to go. Is it going to be Abomination? Is it going to be Titania? Is it going to be Wong? And then we do know that there is a Daredevil cameo coming. What's going to happen with them? Are they going to get together as lawyers? Or are they going to be a love interest for each other? Who knows? There's a lot of cool places this could go, but I'm definitely, maybe too, what would have carried me through, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe I'm being a little impatient and sort of waiting for what that arc is going to be, and so that's made me a little bit more impatient with some of these, just sort of like, okay, she's dealing with the copyright infringement, or there's other little sort of like day-to-day things that don't really, that are they're just going for the humor. But so yeah, definitely very interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, well, it's funny that we're mentioning all these different threads, but we still haven't even talked about the Wrecking Crew, and that kind of group of villains that have the Asgardian kind of weapons or building tools or whatever those are, which has been revealed to be the Wrecking Crew from the comics. And it seems like she has some sort of other party that's like trying to attack her or something. And then there's also whatever Bruce is off investigating with the spaceship and everything. So yeah, there's a bunch of places it can go. I have a feeling that once it all wraps up and we see where it's kind of leading to, it'll probably all make sense. But yeah, it's a little bit kind of aimless right now. But I'm enjoying the kind of just silliness of it, and not a very serious show. So it's kind of just fun to sit back and watch. And despite She-Hulk, the visuals for her not looking all that great still, the rest of the show looks very visually appealing and is fun to watch. So it's been overall positive for me.
I do feel like as the episodes have gone on, they've kind of, either maybe I'm just getting numb to it, or they've kind of smoothed out her CGI issues. I feel like they're not as obvious as a couple of like key sequences in the opening.
Right.
episode.
Well, it's definitely improved from the trailers, that's for sure. And to me, it seems like it's just kind of based on shot. Like some shots look really good as with the rest of it, and some she looks kind of like a video game. But at this point, I'm kind of it's like not even a big deal as long as the story is getting out. It is interesting though that the Hulk CGI seems to be a lot more consistent than hers. So I don't know what. Well, it's interesting. Maybe it's because they've had the Hulk CGI 3D model for so long, they are used to using it, and they have all the different poses and everything ready to go or whatever, and they have to make hers from scratch. Maybe that's it. I don't know, but it is interesting. Yeah. It does seem to be. It seemed to me that his CGI is a lot more consistent than hers is.
Yeah, and on a much more. Yeah, maybe his is off the shelf. They can just pull it off and use it. Whereas hers, they're creating it, and obviously not on a, $250 million.
Right. Oh yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
So yeah, overall, I was super excited for this. I was really, looking forward to this being that different approach, and I knew, Maslany was a great choice for doing something kind of like a little more off the wall and different than the typical sort of adventure focused series or the coming of age thing like with Ms. Marvel. So yeah, I guess, like I said, I've been a little disappointed with some of the, after what, I thought was a fairly strong start, but still, obviously we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing Daredevil and seeing where it builds to.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's a wrap on the first half of She-Hulk. Next up is, I guess I was going to say long awaited, I guess sort of highly anticipated new Star Wars show, Andor. we're coming off the heels of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which
left a lot to be desired.
Left a lot to be desired. We love Ewan McGregor, but the show itself kind of followed a pattern of the the Star Wars shows that have been out to date, Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and just leaving a lot to be desired, I guess. My initial reaction was just that, like, after watching the first 3 premiere episodes on Disney Plus last week, that thankfully they put together, that they released all at once. And given how they were very brief, I mean, I guess, the run times are 40 minutes total, but that includes credits.
Right.
I mean,
the credits are pretty long.
I was surprised how brief they were, it was great that they released them all. But my initial reaction, I know you had a funny reaction too that I'll let you voice, but I was just like, finally a Star Wars show for grown-ups.
I have this kind of phrase that I've been using for the past Star Wars shows, even Mandalorian, which has been very good overall. It's like they've been doing this kind of like baby's first plot line with all these Star Wars shows, where it's like, it's very super basic dialogue, like almost comically simple dialogue, and like, just go here and get this, or go here and find this thing, and there's not very much in the way of characterization or anything beyond like just surface level motivations for these characters. But then finally in Andor, they actually take the time, and I think one of the biggest standout things for me was that there was really only one big action scene throughout all of these 3 episodes, and the rest of it was just dialogue and developing the world and the characters, and it just was so enthralling and just so on a different level than anything we've ever seen in the past from these Star Wars shows, that it almost feels like a different world entirely, because like these characters are just talking and dealing with situations that like you couldn't even conceive of in like goofy Mandalorian or Obi-Wan, which was even goofier. And so it's great to be able to sit down, and even it takes that kind of wartime espionage aspect of Rogue One to just a whole nother level, and it even feels almost beyond that in terms of just a great fleshed out gritty science fiction world.
Yeah, absolutely. The tone. I almost wonder if they could ever bring any of these characters together, because tone among the shows is so different. And we speculated back when we talked about Mandalorian and Boba Fett, etc. What the reasons were. The different production companies. Maybe some of that timing schedule stuff was a reason for the differences in the show, and Andor going for something that's a little bit more simplistic and basic. And like I said, I definitely like The Mandalorian. I think The Mandalorian has been the most successful in terms of sort of navigating that fine line between still, of being very sort of, I guess you would use the word in a positive light, accessible to everybody, maybe mostly kids, but while still, being, compelling enough for adults, at least, a lot of the episodes, whereas the other shows just felt much more rudimentary. And I wonder, Disney Plus has kind of definitely made its mark as, this isn't just going to be kids material. Disney Plus is going to have adult-oriented material as well. But do you think these Star Wars shows maybe very intentionally were put together with young kids as being a huge part of the audience, so they tried to almost write for that or conceive for that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. I mean, I almost wonder if they were trying to go in a more George Lucas direction, because he always was the guy that wanted to do the more kid-friendly stuff as opposed to the darker stuff. Famously, he did the Ewoks, and then he obviously did all the prequels, which were a lot more kind of childish. But it is interesting too that you have like Dave Filoni doing Mandalorian, and he's only done kids cartoons, good kids cartoons, and he's done a great job. But it is interesting that Andor has an actual career screenwriter behind it who's known for the Bourne movies, and has even said he was not even a big Star Wars fan. Like he likes the original movies, but he's not into the universe, and that can go both ways. But they brought him on for Rogue One, and he kind of brought in a lot of the greatest elements of that movie, and it's clear that he really wanted to come in and just do something different, but still respecting the source material in the Star Wars universe. Because as much as I hate to beat a dead horse over and over and over again, Rian Johnson tried that with The Last Jedi, and in my opinion failed horribly, and this is a great example of purposefully doing things that are different for Star Wars, but it still fits in the kind of universe. So the big thing that stood out for me for these 3 episodes is that you didn't see one white stormtrooper helmet, you didn't see one Star Destroyer. From what I can remember, I don't think you saw any Star Destroyers.
Nope.
And you just saw another aspect of the kind of Empire era that has actually been in the movies since really the original, when all the Imperial people are around talking about how the local security systems will keep the general population in line, kind of thing. So we're finally seeing this, how the more kind of police or street level kind of corporate security, private entity kind of things are operating under the Empire's rule, which is just a really interesting way to take it. And it also gives a great just different view and a different viewpoint to explore the galaxy from.
Absolutely, yeah. So we haven't seen anything that we're familiar with in the Star Wars universe. Even like the blasters sound different. All the spaceships that we've seen, and that's a great point, because like what you notice about all these other Star Wars properties is they bombard you with all the nostalgia, and it's like enough already, and this has really not done that, and that's been one of the really tremendous things about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think too, it's very much a character study. You're very much getting into obviously Cassian Andor's backstory. The cast is fantastic. Fiona Shaw.
I didn't realize she was in it until I saw her.
Yeah, she's been in Killing Eve. She's of course been in Harry Potter. And Stellan Skarsgård is obviously, he's great, and he's perfectly cast as that sort of guy who's gonna kind of bring Cassian into the fold of being a rebel spy. But just so much tension just coming out of just the setup of and even so it was a little bit like it took me a while to be like, okay, he's looking for his sister and that sort of stuff, and then the flashbacks to his upbringing as just somebody who was from it seemed to be like a non-spacefaring civilization that he was from, and then gets thrust into this completely different world. So all that's very interesting. I love while I hate him, I love this. I think his name is Cyril Khan. He's from that corporate security, or that that corporation that operates in whatever star system this is and does their own security. The fact that his boss was like, brush this stuff under the carpet, let's move on, and he just can't let it go. And then so now we're getting into spoilers, but I mean, that was just really good storytelling, the way he kind of goes, he just goes against his boss, and he's this like total true believer guy that thinks he's gonna make an impression by being so hardcore, and then it all kind of blows up in his face. I just thought that was just so well done for that initial story arc, but that's obviously going to drive him going forward. There's just so much stuff happening here, and it's funny in the way that it's like, I have no idea where the story's going, but you kind of do know where. Right. Well, yeah,
we already kind of know how it concludes thanks to Rogue One, but it'll be interesting to see exactly how they get there.
Yeah, well, it's in that, like, obviously he becomes a spy for the Rebel Alliance, but like that's all you know, and that's enough. And I think that was one of the I think the big mistakes with The Last Jedi is that you were just like, there was none of that. There was just this like sense of like, what are you doing and where are we going?
Right. It was just throw whatever at the wall.
Right, and then all this controversial changes that were made to the Star Wars universe just to make his what I thought was silly plot work.
Right.
And it just was, yeah. So yeah, this definitely. I mean, I think Rogue One has definitely been one of the most successful. Directly related to the main story or not, it's been one of the maybe the single most successful of the modern Star Wars movies outside of like maybe The Force Awakens. Right,
yeah. Well, I think in terms of maybe raw numbers, Force Awakens is more successful, but in terms of just like aesthetic and filmmaking and a good balance of
storytelling.
Storytelling. Well, that's what I was getting to. Storytelling and just like balancing that nostalgia factor with telling an actual good story and exploring different parts of the universe. And Cassian Andor seems to be taking that much farther.
Yeah, and just the fact that like you touched us on this already. Tony Gilroy, who created the show and wrote it, or at least co-wrote Rogue One. I mean, he's responsible for the first 3 Bourne Identity movies and directed the 4th one. And I don't know anybody that doesn't like those movies. And I don't know anyone who. I think there's a lot of people that aren't even big fans of like spy movies. But, I love the Bourne movies.
Yeah, no, everyone likes those. Those are great mainstream action thriller films.
And just in very tension, but very character-driven tension.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing where it's going to go from here, because we still have like a lot more flashback stuff to flesh out, but it seems like they're kind of changing his origin story a little bit, because in Rogue One he says that he was with the Rebel Alliance, or he at least implies that he was with the Rebel Alliance since he was a kid, whereas that doesn't seem to be the case here, although I don't know how much of that is just maybe the actor is a little bit older than what he's portraying, but it seems like they're going in a little bit different direction, or maybe implying that he was kind of lying or made up his own kind of backstory to kind of cover his origin or whatever else. But
he seems to clearly want to keep his origin under wraps, and so and that could totally have just been a cover story. But it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, and
I'm also interested in where his story is going to go through the Clone Wars, because I was reading that all of that flashback stuff and that ship that crashes on his planet is that's all pre-Clone Wars. So
really?
Yeah, that organization that owns that ship that crashed, I guess eventually becomes the part of the Separatist movement. So the theory now is that he actually might be working for the Separatists through the Clone Wars, which would actually make sense, because if you think about what the rebels are like in the Empire era, they're really kind of an evolution of the Separatists in a lot of ways, considering the Republic became the Empire. So I'm really interested in seeing his interactions with the clones and maybe seeing a different, almost maybe more like threatening and imposing version of the Republic that we haven't seen. So I'm really curious where they're going to go.
Oh, okay. I thought this would have been past the Clone Wars, because they speak about the Empire as if it's pretty well established in the references that I recall hearing in the episodes that we watched. They talk about the Empire and.
Oh yeah, I'm just talking about the flashback stuff specifically on the planet. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So that's all pre-Clone Wars. So he lived through the Clone Wars is what I mean.
Okay, I get it.
So I just think we're going to be seeing whereas previously in all the other Star Wars movies we've seen the Separatists as the bad guys, I think he's going to end up as a Separatist, and we're going to see kind of the evolution of the Republic and the Empire from that point of view, which I think will be really cool.
Yeah, interesting. Well, let's talk about that for a minute too, because I know the seasons isn't there scheduled to be. They've already got a finite number of seasons. It's either 2 or 3.
Right. Yeah, I think they've just
said they're going to do
2 seasons and that's it.
Okay, but there's going to be isn't there going to be a big time jump? thought.
I would probably have to guess because I think it's 5 years before the main story takes place 5 years before Rogue One, so probably to some point. I don't know how much. It'll be interesting to see how far up to how close to Rogue One they get. You know.
Right, and whether they even do some of those time jumps in season, not just between seasons.
And it will be interesting too to see, because I know originally Alan Tudyk was going to be in this season as K2SO, but they wrote him out. And so I guess if he does appear, it'll be the next season. But it'll be interesting to see if they go into that origin story and yeah, how much Rogue One they end up referencing.
And Forrest Whitaker saw Guerrera too. Now.
Yep.
I recall it'll be interesting how they work him in, because maybe him and Cashin won't meet because they met for the first time.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Rogue One, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. At least it seems like they did. I'm not sure if it's ever explicitly said, but it's implied. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but then that's true. There's always a way to change that. And then do we get to see, the fourth moon of Yavin become the rebel base in this show, or will it drop us off before that happens? It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
See, maybe it could even end with him being given that, mission that becomes Rogue One or something like that.
Yeah, I have a feeling that might be how they end it, but yeah, we'll see. I was reading that each arc of the show is going to be like this 3-episode kind of arc, I guess, that we've seen. So they were writing in kind of trilogies to kind of keep that structure. So I'm interested. Maybe we will see a time jump in between the last episode and tomorrow's episode, and maybe that's how it'll keep progressing. But I like that they've kind of set that structure out for themselves. I think that's kind of cool.
That's it. I love that too. That's so maybe because these 3 episodes they kind of move so quickly through, but maybe it's like the sort of introduction and resolution of a specific sort of episode or event,
right?
And then the next 3 episodes move to a different one. That's kind of great. Almost reminds me of what they did a little bit in the first season of The Witcher.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, just going from different scenarios that sort of fill in the larger narrative, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where they go.
Yeah, I'm definitely very high on Andor. I'm just so excited that we've got something that's good. And I know and hopefully this is, I wonder if this will give us an indication of how, some of the other shows that are out there that are coming, like Ahsoka and whatever, if they'll go more in this direction or stick to the formula they've used for the other shows.
Yeah, I hope that they do take, assuming, and I think the reaction to the show has been very positive so far, so I hope that they see that and start to incorporate some more, I guess for lack of a better word, like grown-up, adult, fleshed-out storylines.
All right, so 4 thumbs up between the two of us.
Yeah, absolutely,
for Andor. And yeah, very excited to watch the rest of the show. So that wraps up Andor. We've got a lot of stuff coming. I know you've seen a bunch of horror movies. We've been both working through our spooky season shows, so we've got some stuff coming there. What else is on the horizon? I heard the tickets go on sale for Wakanda Forever soon. I don't know. The movie's November 5th, is that right?
I think so, yeah. Sometime in November.
I'm very interested to see where we go, and I've heard, I thought I saw something about Wakanda being one of the longest MCU movies.
I saw that too, and I would be like, I'm a little bit hesitant, because if it was Wakanda Forever with Chadwick Boseman, I would be down for 3-hour Wakanda Forever, but I don't know. I mean, I understand they want this to be kind of a big epic memorial for him, but without him entirely, I don't know how much. I mean, I want to give all the other actors their due. Obviously, there's some great talent in that, so we'll have to see. But I mean, I really love Chadwick as Black Panther, so
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what they do with that.
Plus, it also seems like they're trying to use this movie as a platform a little bit. Obviously, bringing in Namor as a Submariner. I hear rumors that we're going to see the seeds of Doctor Doom in this film.
Yeah, that
they're
wouldn't
teasing
surprise me.
a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
then
it'll be
obviously we got
interesting.
all the Ironheart and Armor Wars stuff getting set up as well.
Right. That said, they haven't left us with a very great taste in the mouth from Thor.
Oh God, yeah.
So kind of like just weird and just kind of disappointing. So very eager to see that. Although, and I know they've shared a lot of stuff that at Comic-Con and then D23 that we obviously haven't seen, but the Ant-Man bits and pieces I've seen look great. So
I'm excited to see more of that, especially MODOK. Everything I've heard about them introducing MODOK sounds like it's going to be. It's funny, and they found a good way to incorporate that kind of ridiculous character into the MCU. So I'm excited to see how they do it.
And I'll say too, since they did share that teaser trailer for Secret Wars, and that looks fantastic.
Yeah, that looks really good. I'm because it does seem like they've been building that since what, like Captain Marvel? What was that post-credit scene where Nick Fury was in the spaceship up? Was that the post-credit scene for Captain Marvel? Or was that was No Way Home?
It was No Way Home.
Or
no, it was not No Way Home.
Far From Home.
Far From Home, yeah.
Right, yeah. Oh my gosh. I still feel like the first Spider-Man movie is a new movie, and now we've had a whole trilogy of them. I still remember seeing that in the theater with you very vividly, so it's just weird how fast things have gone by.
Definitely. All right, well, thank you all for joining us. As always, we hope you like our conversations. Please like and make comments or whatever you can do to help support this show for us, and we're excited to talk to you again very soon with the rest of She-Hulk and Andor, and then what's to come in the Marvel and horror and sci-fi space that'll be coming up this fall.
Yeah, absolutely.